Well, hello there. Jeff Cloud, Crossroads Reentry Ministries. We're now on A Job and D Job, Part 4, the 4th DVD in this track of 5 DVDs. Again, a little quick introduction. Jeff Cloud. I am the Executive Director and Founder of Crossroads Reentry Ministries. We exist for no other reason than to help people leave behind the incarceration lifestyle, and many times that includes alcoholism, addiction, and associated things that go with the incarceration lifestyle. But that's what our ministry, which by the way is a 501c3 charitable organization, meaning just like the Salvation Army, if somebody gives us a donation, it's tax deductible. We were founded with the feds back in 2007. In other words, that's how a charitable organization has to start. They have to turn their paperwork over to the feds, explain what you're doing, etc., so on and so forth. But our whole focus, our whole mission is to help people leave behind the incarceration lifestyle. We do it by working with people on the inside of jails and prisons and working with them when they get out as well too, to try to help them with any God-honored need other than legal, because we're not lawyers, but any God-honored need other than legal. Last year and the year before and probably the year before that, I got about 600 calls from people coming out of jail or prison, 300 of them roughly. Mr. Cloud, I need a job. 200 of them roughly. Mr. Cloud, I need a safe, sober place to stay. The other 100 could have been anything. I just got out of jail, I'm in paper clothes, I ain't got nothing, and I'm hungry. Start from there and work with a guy to help him make it on the outside. But I think that kind of paints the picture of what we're about at Crossroads Reentry Ministries. Feel free to give me or us a call. Currently, that is my cell phone number, 704-499-1332. This DVD is being filmed in 2014, but in an incarceration facility, it may be being played for years. The time you get out and call, I may be getting so many calls at that number that I'll have an assistant who will answer the phone at our ministry and be able to help with these things as well too. In other words, I would train that assistant on what I do to help meet those needs. And every now and then, some would go beyond that, and of course they would be ones that maybe she would patch through to me, so to speak. But Crossroads Reentry Ministries, feel free to give us a call at 704-499-1332 or write us. Now, let me explain what I mean by write us if need be. If you don't have a safe, sober place to stay when you get out, I would recommend writing us 4 or 5 months before getting out, if you can, and say, hey, I ain't got nowhere to live. What's available for me? Generally, at least I know in North Carolina we can get you some good solid information. We can get you pretty good information in the rest of the nation. Of course, we're focused here in the Carolinas, in Metrolina we call it, the Charlotte, North Carolina area. We're located just outside of Charlotte in Huntersville, North Carolina. Here's our address. Post Office Box 861, Huntersville, North Carolina 28070. Again, Crossroads Reentry Ministries, Post Office Box 861, Huntersville, North Carolina 28070. So contact us. We're there for the help if you want to leave the lifestyle of incarceration behind. A good way to think about me is on the enemy side as a crack dealer. He's trying to work for the enemy, get people killed by giving them dope. I'm on God's side. Both of us generally will start out with this question: what you need? What you need? That's what generally happens if you call us up. What you need? Mr. Cloud, I need a job. Okay. Here's the system that we got that's working for many hundreds of thousands of people to get jobs with records. You work it, it will work for you. That's the kind of way we handle things. Mr. Cloud, I don't have anywhere to go. I'm homeless, whatever the case may be. I just got out of jail or prison. We can kind of try to help you the best that we can with even situations like that. So contact us. That's what we're there for. That's me, Jeff Cloud, Crossroads Reentry Ministries, Post Office Box 861, Huntersville, North Carolina 28070. and phone number 704-499-1332. Now, today in this DVD, we're in A Job and The Job Part 4. A Job and The Job Part 4. In the previous 3 DVDs on A Job and The Job, Parts 1 through 3, I've told you what A Job and The Job are. I'm not going to spend much time on that today because I will talk about that in DVD 5, Part 5. What I am going to talk about today is interview questions. I'm going to talk about an acronym, secondly, called FLOWER, like the pretty flowers that grow in the spring, except singular. And then thirdly, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about sales is sales. Sales is sales. So now what I'd like to do is start off with interview questions. Okay, interview questions. Now, interview questions, generally what's going to happen for any job that pays more than $10 an hour is that there will be interview questions. Okay, there will be interview questions. Sometimes even for the jobs that are at bare minimum wage, there will be interview questions. Now, I'd like to share this with you. Many of the job training courses come from professors in colleges, and they've had one job being professor at that college. And they have never hired anybody. If you catch the disconnect there, you got somebody coming up with trying to tell people, teach people, putting a course together on how to get jobs who's never hired anybody. That's a major disconnect. I want to give you a little bit of experience that I've had that I think puts me in place to be able to help with some of the stuff I'm getting ready to talk about. God blessed me to be an engineer from about the ages of getting out of college at 22, 23 years old. And I retired as an engineer at 43 back in 2003. So if you do the math, 2014, I'm 54 years old. I've been retired from engineering 11 years, primarily working in this ministry that we see right here. Okay, so I left behind the engineering career, but part of what went on was in 20 years of being an engineer, I became a professional engineer early in my engineering career. And I moved up, for example, in a big old company, about 3,000 people employed. I was middle way up. 1,500 people below me, 1,500 people above me, middle way up. But part of what I had to do was hire people, and a lot of them. A lot of interviews, etc., so on and so forth. I worked with what was called HR, stands for Human Resources. And of course, they would train people like me. What kind of questions are we going to ask to hire people? What are we looking for in them, their experience, etc., so on and so forth, so that we could get the best employees that we could. And there was a lot of time spent on making sure we knew what we were doing. So I'm coming from a background where I have this experience in a corporate world for 20 years. All right, now, I'd like to start off with some interview questions. I'm not going to address those questions that will be job specific. Let me give you an example of what I mean. Let's say last course DVD we talked about a skills resume. Let's say you sent in a skills resume and you got warehousing experience and you sent it to several warehouse facilities. Well, you get called in for an interview, they're going to ask you specific questions about warehousing duties. I know that's going to go on. You're either going to know them or you're not based upon experience. So I'm not going to address those type of things here, the experience questions. The only thing I'll say to that is just be honest. In other words, don't make yourself look like you know everything when you don't. The other side of the coin is do let them know what you know. Okay? So, what I would like to do is move into the different area of what's going on with some of the interview questions that they'll ask. Most interviews will be about 80% those questions related to that specific experience, but some others are given by human resources to see what kind of person do we have. And so those are going to be the kind of questions that I want to address with you. Here's one of those questions that will come about. Let's say we sit down at an interview and the first question that the interviewer says is, okay, Mr. Johnson, tell me a little bit about yourself. Now, I'm going to do a timeout right there. what most people fail to realize is in an interview, it is a two-way street to ask questions. The interviewer's going to ask you questions, but it's okay for you to ask the interviewer questions. As a matter of fact, it is a good idea to ask the interviewer questions. Here's why. Bosses like workers who, when they don't know, ask questions rather than go mess something totally up like they know it all and just screw it up. And then they got to go 4 times the work to come back and make it right. So good bosses don't mind at all employees who ask questions when they're not sure of something. Okay? So a good boss is looking at that even in the interview. The guy never asks any questions, he must think he knows it all. I'm not hiring him. Now, what I would say is this. If this question comes up, let's say it was the first one. He maybe did some icebreakers, talking about sports and this kind of thing. You have a good trip down, traffic bad, blah, 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 whatever the case may be. And then he says, tell me about yourself. One of the things I would do is immediately, I'm going to ask a couple questions to set the groundwork of where we're going in this interview. Here's what I mean. He says, tell me about yourself. I say, sir, I got a couple quick questions. Do you want me just to tell you first about my personal life and or my work life? You see how I'm making that one question, but I'm basically saying, do you want to know just about my work life when you say tell me about yourself, or do you want work life and personal life? And then the second question is, sir, I know your time is very valuable. Could you kind of give me an idea of how much time you want me to take to answer each one of your questions approximately? And the reason I ask, of course, that second question is basically if I'm giving 20-minute answers and he's expecting 20-second answers, we are in a disconnect off the get-go, as we say here in North Carolina, the get-go. That means off the beginning. Okay, so I would ask those two questions. What I have just done is I've set the stage to kind of know how this interview should go. And this question, does he want to know work life or work life and personal life? All right. Second thing is about how long you expecting me to answer these questions. He says, Mr. Cloud, I want to know both of your personal life and your work life, personal life, if you want to tell me a little bit about yourself. But definitely about your work life. And then secondly, take about a minute to 2 minutes for each question. I think should be ample. I'm going to have about 20 questions here and trying to shoot for about 30 minutes in the interview. Okay. So we've laid the groundwork. What he realizes is this guy looks for direction and he's going to be a team player to bring this thing in. But tell me about yourself. So many times we need to know a little bit about our personal life. Of course, we're going to know about our work life. We'll be able to tell them, here's my general experience I've had, blah, 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 blah. And then, of course, a little bit about yourself. If this was asking me, well, sir, I'm an executive director of a charitable organization. But beyond that, in my personal life, I'm married to a great wife, 17 years. I have 2 beautiful daughters, 14 and one almost 12. And I love playing water volleyball in the summer months. The rest of the time I try to exercise a little bit, take care of myself. But I enjoy putting about 40 or 50 hours into my work. And then I try to keep balance in my life. Go play, go sit by the pond. Read my Bible for me. I'm a born-again Christian, whatever the case may be. But that kind of thing is a little bit about tell me about yourself. Here is a couple of things that human resources kind of led us who would be hiring people to. Another question that you might ask are, Mr. Johnson, what are your strong points? Now what's interesting about that question is everybody knows their strong points. For example, if I was interviewing for a job right now, Mr. Cloud, what are your strong points? Well, I'm a very good communicator. I'm a very good writer with communication skills in the written arena. I am also a very good organizer. In other words, organizing our organization, organizing our teachers that go out and teach in incarceration facilities, making sure they know what they're going to be teaching, when they're going to be teaching, how they're going to teach, etc., so on and so forth. Now, if you catch that, those 3 skills just in themselves would be needed for that. But everybody can get their strong points, no problem there. I won't spend much time on that. But usually what's really going on is the human resources people are kind of setting the stage. Well, if we ask you about your strong points, naturally the next thing is we want to ask you about your weak points. Now here's what's going on with that one. That one is the key one. And here's what I mean by that. Imagine, if you will, there's a man who comes in and he comes in, he says, well, I don't really know of any. Human resources says, big old X. This man don't know of any of his weaknesses? None. So we've just had Mr. Perfect walk in. Guess who you don't want to hire? Mr. Perfect. If he don't know of any weaknesses, we ain't hiring him. Deep question. What do we do to identify our weak points? I think the best way is, don't wait till you go into an interview. Sit there on your bed sometime. Take 15 minutes. Pray and ask God, help me to realize my weak points. I've been sober 20 years. I've been walking this life with God 20 years. I had that old past, couple dozen arrests prior to that, all that stuff. But what's interesting is, let's just say that I was 1 year sober, plus or minus. And somebody had asked me, what are your weak points? And here's what I would have done. If I wrote it out on the bed before I went to an interview, I'd have said, okay, I get agitated real easy. I still cuss. And in personal relationships, I talk too much. That means one-on-one relationships. I hog the floor when we communicate or talk. Now, if you catch that, I've written down on a piece of paper. I've got 3 letters there. And they happen to be, if I scramble them a different way than I just said previously, that I would come up with C, cussing, A, agitated, and T, talk too much. C-A-T, cat. I got a good little acronym. I go into any interview, they ask me, I've got 3 weaknesses I can immediately talk about. Now, the question that of course follows that is, what are you doing about those weaknesses? Now, go back to a year sober, so 19 years ago, my cussing, for example, I would have sat there and said basically this. In my whole life, I cussed a lot. I've been trying to work with God and then work on it myself and not cuss, because it's not right. I don't need to do it in front of kids, etc., so on and so forth. It'll stop me from getting good jobs, It's not a good thing. What I have done is, some cases, substituted my own cuss word. Let me give you an example of what I mean. Out on the golf course, hit a shot, I used to say some real bad stuff. Got out on the golf course, hit a hook, goes off in the woods, I go, crabapple! You see, I'm frustrated and crabapple. First time I did that, the 3 guys who were golfing with me, they're looking around going, what did he say? What did he say? He said crabapple. And that became my cuss word. I can say crabapple in front of anybody. 5-year-old kid, 8-year-old kid, it don't matter. And the boss, when I get frustrated, he's going to know I'm frustrated. It's better than a cuss word. That was my substitute cuss word. Another thing that I started doing was using the right words instead of cuss words. Here's what I mean. Somebody's telling you a crock of crap, I'd say, bull feces. That's bull feces. You see, I ain't saying BS. Makes a big difference in people out there. Why? Feces is the proper word to use. So my point being, that's a couple of ways that I had done something and was doing something about a weakness. And of course we identify some other ways. But if you catch what I'm talking about doing, we do that in the quietness, laying on our bed, sitting at our desk, sitting on the sofa before the interview, so that we got 3 things immediately when they ask us that key question. Because you see, that key question many times is just a setup. Have we got Mr. Perfect? If we do, don't hire him. If he's got weak points, is he doing anything about it? Because what's going to happen in the work world is all of us going to screw up. But what are we doing to get it back right? And that's what the potential employer is looking for. So those are a couple questions that kind of tie together. Weak points, what are they? And what are you doing about them? Another question that may follow, since you've told them about your record in the past, like we talked about in A Job and D Job Part 3 DVD, you've told them about your record in the past. What did you do while incarcerated to improve yourself? Sir, I went to Alcoholics Anonymous, I went to Narcotics Anonymous, I took GED, what we call in North Carolina, I assume nationwide, the high school equivalency of getting that high school diploma. And some incarceration facilities on that. There may have been different things you took. culinary. Here in Mecklenburg County, they can take horticulture. They got a nice horticulture building at what we call Jail North. But the point being, think about all those things that you did that turned you around from the person you were prior to when you got incarcerated. Be ready for that question. Okay, that is some interview questions to be ready for. Some interview questions to be ready for. Now what I'd like to do is I want to talk to you about some skills to develop to be a good interviewee. In other words, in the interview, you have an interviewer and you have an interviewee. The interviewer is the boss. The interviewee is the one going after the job. And part I want to do is I want to set aside my little podium here, and I want to pull up a chair, and I want to pull up this chair and show you some things about how to interview properly. Now, let's first say that we got a guy coming in, Jeff Cloud, and here's how he comes in when the potential boss sitting right here across from where he's going to have Jeff Cloud sit. And he's basically saying, pull up a chair there, Mr. Cloud. Now watch this. If I come in like this, I ain't getting the job at all. I'm not getting the job at all. Now, what you probably didn't see there was I was closed off with my legs. My arms are closed off. I'm not looking at the man. My head's drooping. My body's drooping. I'm basically giving the body language, this guy is pitiful. He is pitiful. Now, he is pitiful. This is pitiful. And that's the first message that's coming across. What a lot of people don't realize is 80% of the game is body language. Whether it's an interview or Jeff Cloud teaching. Let me give you an example of what I mean about Jeff Cloud teaching. You'll notice I'm very animated. I'm here, there, yonder, pointing at that. My voice goes up, my voice goes down. You see things like that. I'm not sitting up here going, I've got some information to give to you. And as I give you this information, we're looking at A job and D job part 4. And the next thing I know in my classes, everybody be going to sleep. If I did like that. That's why I'm animated. That's why I come out with my voice going up and then down low. And basically showing you some things, moving around, because it keeps attention. 80% of the game is body language. 80% of the game is body language. It's the same way in an interview. So here's what we've got. We've got an acronym, FLOWER, F-L-O-W-E-R, just like the pretty thing that we see in the spring out in the garden. A flower sitting over at the corner or out in the front of a house. In April, for example, in North Carolina, we see those pretty yellow flowers come up. We're talking about one flower here. It's going to be an acronym to help us to do interviews best. And here's those letters and what they stand for. First, we got the F, which stands for face. Now imagine that I've just pulled up and I'm having an interview with you. What face means is I'm squaring up with you. I'm not turning off, looking down, looking away. If you turn off, look down, look away, you look like you're trying to hide something. I'm facing you. I'm squaring up to you. I'm not covering all this stuff up looking like Count Dracula. I'm facing you. That's a great thing to do in an interview, face. Now, F, face. L, I want to talk about in the acronym, is lean. As I'm interviewing with you, I'm leaning forward. What message that gives is that I'm interested in you and what you have to say, Mr. Boss. I'm leaning forward. Now, what I'd like you to also catch is these skills work great in an interview. But these skills work great in life. Let me explain what I mean by that. I'm going to use my 14-year-old daughter. My 14-year-old daughter is a teenager, and we know about teenagers. We've been teenagers, okay? Generally, teenage years are the most hard-headed years there are. I believe it to be true in everybody's life. Generally, the teenage years were the most hard-headed. Now, my daughter will come talk to me about life issues. I'm blessed in that regard. I poured a lot of time into her, 0 to 6 years old, and I poured a lot of time into her 6 to 12. Why? I knew she'd hit these teenage years and kind of be on her own, maybe pull away from dad, quote unquote, a little bit. But still, she comes and talks to me. One of the things I do is this, is I exercise Flower when she comes to talk to me. I might be on the computer, I'm tapping, doing my thing there for Crossroads, and hey, Daddy, I want to talk to you a minute. Now, I could sit there and keep tapping. My body language will say, work is more important than you, and that ain't what I want. I sit there immediately. She sat down right there. I turn my chair around. I face her, and I lean towards her. And I use these techniques to show her I am listening to you. Now, where can we start practicing these? Anywhere. You could be on the yard in prison, getting ready to get out in a year. And you start practicing. You've always been talking to people like this. Closed away, like that kind of stuff. And then you start practicing, facing, leaning towards them. You see the difference? You're starting to practice these skills. They will help you in all relationships. F, L-O-W-E-R. F was face, L, lean. Now, I'd like to move to the third one. Open, open. And what that means is basically this. Open posture. I'm not closing my arms off. I'm not closing my legs off. I'm not closing my head to you. That's what I call the Count Dracula. Count Draculas don't get the job. They don't get the job. Okay? Open. I'm open posture to you. My arms are generally open. My legs are generally open. I'm open to you. Open postured people are the ones who get the job. Now, I'm not being closed off from you. One thing I want to stop here and talk a little bit about is this. Open posture doesn't mean that you can't close something off. Here's what I mean by that. Let's say that I got the nervous habit of tapping that leg. When I get nervous, I tap that leg. What I might do is put that right leg right over here. I'm still generally open to the man talking to me. But now, where I put my leg crossing the other, I can't tap it. So in general, O is open posture. You got F is face them square. L is lean towards them. O is open posture. W is watch your distance. W equals watch your distance. When they ask you to pull up a chair, let's say it's a shop. You're an automotive mechanic. Joe Smo, he's got a shop. He invites you in for an interview. You go in, he's got the greasy rag. He owns the shop there. He said, Mr. Johnson, pull up a chair right there. Watch your distance. Don't go way too far away and pull up a chair. You'll look like you're trying to avoid him. Don't go too close and encroach upon his space. The ideal space we recommend, if possible, is about 1.5 arm lengths. So if Mr. Johnson says pull up a chair, Cloud, I'll pull up a chair about 1.5 arm lengths from him. That's about the proper distance, since I've really never met Mr. Johnson before. But W is watch your distance. E is eye contact. E, eye contact. Eye contact. Look at the person interviewing you. Here's what is going to go on. People generally, I call it quarters, 1/4. They're going to do 1/4 eye contact, 0 contact, half contact, 3/4 contact, full-time eye contact. Everybody's going to fall into those 5 camps. No eye contact all the way to full-time eye contact. And what you want to do is that potential boss, if he's looking at you all the time, eyeball to eyeball, you better be looking back at him, because that's what he expects out of people. Then again, you might come into an interview and the man basically does this. He's no eye contact. He sits there with a pad like this, and as you're talking, he's jotting notes down, keywords, concrete, warehousing. He's talking about your experience or whatever the case is, so he can review those notes later. That's why it's always a good idea for you to bring a pad. Then you would ask him questions about the company. How many employees y'all got? 2,000. You're jotting it down. You're showing him, I do the same thing you do. That's what employers like. But the main point is the eye contact. Some may want full eye contact, some half contact. Just watch how much eye contact they have with you. Give about the same back to them. For example, the man who does the pad never looks at you. You got the pad, you're jotting down everything he's saying. What you've just shown him is, I'm the same type of worker you are. You jot down notes so you can go back and have them later and make sure you're right. I'm jotting down notes so I can go back and look at them and make sure I got them right. Your eye contact, and you got to look at people the whole time to read them. I'm an eye contact man. I'm going to look you right back in the eye because I ain't lying to you. So there you got the first 5. F is face, L is lean, O is open, W is watch, E is eye contact, and R is relax. Relax. Now you say, Mr. Cloud, that may be a tough, tall order to do in an interview. Relax. And it is to a degree. But one thing I want to share with you is this. Believe it or not, the man who or woman who may be hiring you has more skin in the game than you do. What do you mean by that? Think about it. They could hire the wrong person. Now here's the wrong person. The wrong person is not the one who does wrong next week and you fire them and they're gone. You only had a week to deal with them. The wrong person is the one who does the bare minimum bottom and will try to get by with anything they can and do as little as possible, but they don't cross that line that you can actually use something to fire them. That's the worst employee. And let's say they're there for 3 decades. If a boss gets that bad employee in, the worst possible kind, they do the bare minimum, but they don't cross that line where you can fire him, he's stuck with that bad employee for 3 decades. He's got a lot of skin in this game. So believe it or not, the interviewer in general is just as nervous as the interviewee when the interviewee comes in. Now the interviewee, the person trying to get a job, if he doesn't get it at company X, he can move on to company Y. But the man who's hiring people, if he hires the wrong one, like I just described, that person could be around for decades. That person could be around for decades. So you see, for example, relax. That is one key to relaxing, is basically this. That one key is to realize that person interviewing you is just as nervous as you are. Now, I don't know about you, but when I feel like everybody's in the same boat as I am, I feel a lot more comfortable. And I think you would as well, too. When you realize he or she is just as nervous as you are, then that's one major tool to relax. A second major tool that I try to share with people, if you're a praying person, you ask God this: let me not be any more nervous than you want me to be. Now, I think God wants us to be a little nervous in an interview, not too relaxed, because if we're too relaxed, we look like we're on Quaaludes. That ain't going to get it. Ain't going to get the job. But He wants us to be a little bit nervous so that we got that edginess, that awareness. All right? So you got those 2 major tools. The interviewer is nervous. Secondly, you can pray and ask God to be no more nervous than He wants you to be. And then thirdly, I think a lot of times is to realize that you are going for a job. God's going to meet your needs if you're keeping Him first. And He's going to get you in the right place. So there's 3 major tools to deal with that. But I want you to see flower, F-L-O-W-E-R. F is face, square up to the person. L is lean. Lean in towards the person. Yes, I'm showing you I'm interested when I lean in. O, open posture. Remember, I'm not coming in there like Count Dracula. W, watch my distance. Arm length and a half. E, I'm reading eye contact. How much is that interviewer giving me eye contact to the nearest quarter? He's doing it about half time. I'm going to be looking at him about the half time. I may glance down, look around, but I'm looking back at him about half the time when I'm talking to him. And then I may glance around a little bit when I because I'm seeing him do that. I know he's comfortable with that. He's probably comfortable with people who do that. So I'm setting the stage with my body language, if you will. E was eye contact, R was relax as much as possible. Relax as much as possible. And I think when you do that, you're going to come across as doing things well. Now, one thing I'd like to share with you is this. I deal with hundreds, really thousands of people in jail or prison per year. Many times in some of my classes, we do practice interviews. Practice interviews where we actually go over a flower and we go over and, quote unquote, critique somebody. How did they do on flower? We ask them these questions and see what their answers are so that they're prepared. And what inevitably happens is when we get to the end of it, I'll ask the man, I'll say, were you nervous at first? Yes, sir, I was real nervous. I thought my voice sounded blah, 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 blah. Real chappy, real cracky. Y'all could tell I was nervous. What inevitably happens is the rest of the crowd does not tell the person is nervous. And what I mean by that is we magnify our own nervousness about 100 times more than what it really is. We think people can see that. They can't. The main thing is, yes, we're going to be nervous that first minute or two of the interview. As a matter of fact, Human Resources teaches those of us who've been interviewers, not just the interviewer. E is going to be nervous. The interviewer is nervous. Both of you are going to be nervous that first minute or two. So why don't we throw out little niceties, we call them. Mr. Johnson, how was traffic coming down? Tell me about it. Well, here's what went on, man. We got on the bus and it was backed up down on such and such a street, but then it broke and I got on down here. Mr. Johnson, are you a sports fan of any kind? Yes, sir. I like whatever team it may be. Okay. Then those are what's called niceties. They basically are icebreakers and they're not important to the interview. They're just to get through that quote unquote first nervousness part. Because first couple minutes somebody's been talking, then they feel in the groove, if you will. They feel in the groove. And that's what it's basically about. Now, again, where can we practice flower? We can practice flower anywhere we are. Anywhere at all we are. Prison yard, we can practice flower. Out of prison, we can practice flower with the wife. We can practice flower with the children. We can practice flower as we talk with our brother. We can practice flower with our boss man. It's going to pay handsome dividends down the line, no matter what relationship it is. So this is not just a tool for interviewing, this is a tool for life. And of course, to get good with tools, we have to practice them. Jeff Cloud is not a skill saw man. Those of you know construction and you know carpentry, you know what a skill saw is. Skill saw, all right. Jeff Cloud doesn't know how to use one. But if Jeff Cloud ever wants to get good at it, he would have to practice. And what would work real well is work under a master craftsman. But the point being, plenty of practice could make Jeff Cloud good at running a skill saw. It's the same way with this. Practice, 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 and use it in life. Use it in life. So far what we've done today, we've looked at our typical interview questions. Secondly, we looked at that acronym FLOWER, F-L-O-W-E-R. F equals face, L equals lean, O equals open posture, W watch your distance, E equals eye contact, R equals relax. We got a great acronym to help us with interviews. Now, I want to talk about a third thing here on this DVD. Sales is sales. Sales is sales. You know, as many people that I work with in incarceration facilities, sooner or later there's going to be one that comes along like this. And there has been. Mr. Cloud, I got locked up at 16 years old for murder one. I'm now 40 years old and I'm getting ready to get out next year. I have absolutely no work experience. Oh, what do you do for a man like that? Or youth. We work with youth sometimes, 16, 17 years old. 16, 17 years old, they've never had a job. How in the world can you do a skills resume? Or how can you sell yourself to get a job? Here is what is true. All of us have certain talents, skills, experiences that could be used by someone who employs people. We'll say that again. All of us have experiences, skills, talents that could be used for somebody who has a company and is hiring somebody. Here's what I mean by sales is sales. Many times we have been good in that past life, call it the criminal life, the unsaved life, the using life, the drunk life. We've been good in certain skills there, and when we can turn and walk with God and use those same skills in the new life. Let me explain what I mean by that. Jeff Cloud, 20 years plus, was an alcoholic and a womanizer. Now, I'll tell you something about being a womanizer. You've got to be good with your oral skills to convince women to do what you want them to do, to be a womanizer, and a good one. Now, I start walking with God. He don't want me out there with all the women. Matter of fact, He wants me with just my wife, and that's the only woman I've been with since I've been in this new life 20 years ago. All right, now, He wants me with my wife, but I still use the same skill, those oratory skills to convince people. For example, the whole purpose of these DVDs is to use my oratory skills primarily to get you to walk with God, walk God's way, but to help you. All right? I use the oratory skills that God has given me. A man might have in the past been able to break in a car in 16 seconds and be driving off with it, still in the car. I can't even sometimes get into my car in 16 seconds with my keys. He can go into a car, no keys, get into the car, crank it up, be gone with his hands. Now, what's interesting is that's doing it the evil way or the wrong way. He's using his hand skills, the skills of his hands. He's real good with his hands to do things the wrong way. He starts walking God's way. He uses his hands to become a mechanic. Down the line, he opens his own business, being a mechanic on cars. Down the line, he's making enough money, he starts giving to charitable organizations that do good work like Crossroads, Reentry Ministries. He gives some of his money he makes to charitable organizations because he realizes the better life is being a giver, not a getter. Okay? But my point being, he left behind the old life, but he carried that same skill because he was good with his hands when he's still in cars. He goes walking with God, he's good with his hands when he becomes a mechanic. Okay? Sales is sales might work like this. A man was a great slinger, a dope slinger out in the world, on the street, in the hood. He was a great dope slinger. Man, he could sling, he could sell dope left and right. He could convince anybody just about to buy his dope. All right. He has certain skills that will still work for sales the right way. Sales is sales after all. Guarantee if you look at the best dope slinger we've ever known, me or you, because I used to run the game prior to 20 years ago, back doing that kind of stuff. But if we look at the best dope slinger that there's ever been, here's basically what we find. The dope slinger is good with people. Guess what? The man who sells Mercedes-Benz, he's a car salesman. He's doing it the right way, the way God wants him to, legal way, good way. He is good with people. The top salesman, if we went down to the local Mercedes-Benz car lot. Crack slinger, he knows his product. Man, this is some good stuff. It came from Peru, wherever the case may be. I got 28.2 grams, makes up an ounce for you. He knows his product. Same way with the man who sells a lot of Mercedes. Sir, let me tell you some of the benefits of the Mercedes here. We got such and such a chassis system, blah, 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 blah. You see the picture I'm painting. Sales is sales. So the man can go back and look and say, here's skills that I used in my old life that will work in a new life. Another thing, a man might have been in prison or jail for decades, say from 16 to 40, like I was just talking about a man that I actually knew that situation, 40 or so. He'd been incarcerated all the way from 16, served 24 years. He has another year before he's getting out. Mr. Cloud, what would work for somebody like me? I tried to challenge him to look at some of the things he had done in the prison. I said, did you ever cook? Yes, sir, I have. You've got cooking skills because you learned some things there. Have you ever worked any jobs in the prison? He said, yes, doing this and doing that. I said, you got some skills. I said, what kind of things do you have talents in? And he started naming some of them. And I said, maybe the best thing you can put is not going to be a work-related skills resume, but it's what I would call a life skills-related resume for your personal life skills. For example, Jeff Cloud, he could write a life skills resume, good oral communication skills, good written communication skills, organizational skills, able to organize things. I'll give you an example. The leader of a big drug cartel. As a matter of fact, Prison Fellowship Ministries used to have a 200-page reentry manual. I think they put together somewhere around 1990. And in that reentry manual was a story called Sales is Sales. And the whole point was they were pointing to a guy who ran an international drug ring. International drug ring. He ends up getting busted and gets like 20 years or something, some sort of major federal time. He gets busted for 20 years. He's getting ready to come out. He's about 50 years old or so coming out. And what he basically does is this, is he comes way outside the box. He takes all those articles that he had had from his arrest for international drug ring and how much he was running, $2 billion worth of dope going worldwide on freighters in the United States on 18-wheelers. And he took the headlines and he made a resume. So-and-so leads multi-billion-dollar drug ring. So-and-so running operations worldwide. And then down in his resume, he put, I have coordination and organization skills. I've been able to coordinate massive transportation networks. Now, if you catch this, every single bit of it is true, and they are skills. And the story went on that he got hired by a man who ran like a Brazilian nuts factory. They sold Brazilian nuts all over the world. And they said, how come you hired this guy who just served 20 years and was a major drug kingpin? He said, when I saw his resume, I knew he had the same skills that I needed for a mid-level sales manager. And of course, he hired him, made him a mid-level sales manager, and the guy had the skills necessary to do it. He had used them out there doing the drug ring, being a drug lord, if you will. Sales is sales. He started walking the right way with God. And he started being a great distributor, if you will, or middle-level sales manager for Brazilian nuts. And it was perfectly legal to do that. The funny thing was, if you think about it, it was harder to do it with the drug lord ring because he's got all the other stuff he'd have to do the right way, and he's got to keep an eye out for the law. When he was doing it the legal way, he ain't got to keep an eye out for the law. So it was actually easier to walk it in the right way, So you see, for example, sales is sales. And the challenge for you is take a pencil, piece of paper, if you're a praying man, and ask God, what skills do I have in my life? What skills have I had in my past work life, if you have one? But what skills do I have today? Now, people have different skills. Some are great with their hands. Some are artistic. Some are great communicators. Some are great teachers. Everybody's got their different talents. Doesn't mean anybody's better or worse than anybody else in God's economy. It's just different talents. Jeff Cloud, for example, many people say, Mr. Cloud, your teaching's great, blah, blah, blah. That's fine. That's the talent God's given me. I don't get too puffed up about that. But I look at that same man, and he can sit there and draw, beautiful drawing, a guy in prison or jail, whatever the case may be, beautiful drawing, and if I tried to draw a stick man, you'd say, Cloud, what letter is that? That's how bad my artistic talent is. I'm impressed by his artistic ability. And he can draw something that I can sit there and meditate upon, potentially for hours if I wanted to, and see all kinds of stuff going on that helps me to meditate upon God, etc. So different talents for different people, but God uses them all. So if you're not a great teacher or orator, that's all right. You've got different talents. I need to get my car fixed, I generally don't jump out there and go up under the hood. I go to the man who has that talent. As a matter of fact, I look for people who have that talent because they're good and efficient. As long as they're honest, they give good service. That's the guy I want on my team to work on my car, because he's going to be way better than I am at it. Conversely to that, I may not see him going up into jails or prisons with my ministry, and that's okay. He doesn't have the talent to teach. But each of us have different talents, and this word could be anything. Sales is sales. Communication is communication. Oratory skills, womanizing, or oratory skills down the line, walking the right way, convincing people to walk with God is the best life. Boom. Oratory skills is oratory skills. So you put in your own stuff and explore what your particular talents are yourself. All right, we're at the end of our time here for DVD, A Job and D Job Part 4. I look forward to seeing you in the next DVD, our 5th of 5 on A Job and D Job. I'll leave you with this. We've been blessed. Now let's go be a blessing.